Hey guys, it's your old pal Alice Cooper. Basically, this is Spooktacular. So you're gonna be seeing a bunch of horror movies that have a Halloween theme to it. Look for it all this month.
Hi, it's me, Alice Cooper. I'm back for my next movie review. This is Scream, of course. So basically, it's not a very complex story. It involves uh, Neve Campbell and a few select cast of David Arquette and his ex-wife, um, and it starts out with Drew Barrymore answering the phone after the title screen comes up, and there's a scream, of course, because it's a scream, and she answers the phone, and she has this little discussion with this guy over the phone, and she makes some popcorn because she's getting ready to watch a video, and she said this is a scary movie, and the guy on the phone says he likes scary movies. And so he wants to play a game with her. And he asked her a few questions, one involving an answer she should have got correct, by the way. One that was basically name the killer in Friday the 13th. And she says, Jason, Jason, Jason. And he goes, I'm sorry, that's the wrong answer. And she goes, no, it's not. No, it's not. It was Jason. I saw that movie 20 freaking times. Then you should know it was Jason's mother that was the original killer. Jason didn't show up until the sequel. I'm afraid that was a wrong answer. And she goes, you tricked me. And he goes, lucky for you, there's a bonus round. But poor Steve, I'm afraid he's out. Steve is her boyfriend, and he's like a football player or something, and he's big, and he'll kick his butt. And Steve, he gets slashed. He gets his innards basically spilled out because, the killer killed him. So Drew Barrymore answers, there's this ringing at the door, and she goes, who's there? Who's there? I'm calling the police. And the phone calls her again, and she screams out again. So basically, she gets killed by the killer in this way that basically the producers of the movie had to do 2 or 3 versions of the beginning because it was originally NC-17, so they had to recut it to make it R, suitable for an R-rated movie. They just basically made it shorter. And Drew Barrymore is basically hung up with the phone, and the parents show up as they're trying to get into their door, and they see their little girl is dead, and the mother screams out in terror, and then boom, this movie finally starts. Basically, it starts out with Sydney. And she's got this boyfriend, and she won't sleep with him. But she does tease him in one scene where he climbs into her window, and she goes, "Would you settle for a PG-13 relationship?" And he goes, "What's that?" And he shows up her blouse to show her tits to him, and he goes, "You tease." And basically, it's not a very complex story. Randy and played by Matthew Lillard, and this other guy, her boyfriend, Steve. Well, not her boyfriend. No, Steve was the previous guy. This guy is Billy Loomis, and he's like the main character, basically. Well, actually, Sydney is the main character. She has this boyfriend Dewey, who's like a police officer, and he shows up for a few scenes. And there's this one scene where at the beginning, sort of, and well, it's toward the toward that part I was just talking about, and you know, he holds up the mask of the killer, the ghost mask, and he screams out in terror, ah! And he goes, okay, guys, come on, let's go. And you know, he brings in the police force, you know, after the killer is basically left. You know, the killer actually called Sydney, and turns out that she suspects her boyfriend was the one who was calling her from the police station, because she asked him much later on, who did you call? So basically, and you know, Billy gets you know, interrogated by a police officer, and he asks him, "What are you doing on a cellular telephone, son?" And he says, "Everyone's got him, Sheriff." So basically, they let him go because they don't have anything on him. And much later on, Gail Weathers, you know, played by Courtney Cox, she has this cameraman Kenny, and they show up in his van, and you know, and then Dewey surprises her, and he holds up a flashlight to his face, and he says, "You're not scared, are you?" And you know, they basically have this little talk, and there's this little party that the kids are all going to, because you know, it's like this party, you know, because. But I want to get to this part with the Fonz. Henry Winkler, he's playing the principal, and you know, he talks to some of the two of the students, and he says, he grabs the ghost mask and he cuts it up with scissors, and he goes, "Two of your students are savagely murdered, and this is how you show your compassion, and you're both expelled. Get out." And he goes, "Come on, Mr. Emery, it's not fair." And he goes, "Well, right. Fairness would be to hang you out by the desensitized little that you are." So he leaves, and he goes out. You know, he hears this sound in the hallway, and the janitor looks like freaking Freddy. He's got the Freddy sweater on and the Freddy hat on, and he goes, "What did you call me, huh?" And the principal goes, "Not you, Fred." And then he goes back into his office, and he opens up this closet, and the freaking killer is there, and he screams out in terror, and and you see this reflection of the killer in his eye, which is really cool. And then it goes to this part with the school. And then you have Alice Cooper's "School's Out for Summer," and which is really cool, by the way. And you know, the kids are, you know, sitting out on the lawn basically, and they have this little discussion about the killer, and that, you know, basically Matthew Lillard's character was with Tatum, which is Tatum is Sydney's best friend, and she says that she was with him. He was with her last night, so that's her alibi, which basically he didn't do it. So there you go. They have this little discussion about this little party they want to go to, and there you go. They have this party, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail about it. You know, they watched Halloween, and Randy talks about the rules about surviving a horror movie. And Tatum gets killed in a really funny way inside of the garage. And Randy gets stabbed. And Billy and Stu talk to Sydney. And they say, "Surprise, Sydney." And turns out they're the killers. And he goes, and it turns out that Billy and Sydney actually had sex. she gave up her virginity, so she's no longer a virgin. So she has to die. Those are the rules. And and the gun is misplaced because Stu doesn't know what happened to the gun. This is before Stu gets stabbed by Billy, because they want to make it look like it was elaborate prank, but they actually want to frame her Sydney's father for the murders. So, and they stab each other, and she goes, "You sick freaks! You seen too many movies." And then Billy goes, "Don't you blame the movies, Sydney. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative." And he goes, "I'm getting a little woozy here. Come on, Billy, you cut me too deep." and Stu, like I said, can't find the gun, and he goes, "I put the gun right here, and it's not here." And he goes, "Where is it?" And Billy goes, "Where is it?" And Gail Weathers has the gun, and she goes, "Right here, a-hole." And they thought she was dead, and she looked dead, still does. And Gail Weathers, has this little discussion about, the reporter left for dead, comes to, finds little dupe shoots, takes the gun, and saves the day. And Sydney says, "Well, I like that ending." And Billy says, "There's one thing you don't know. Works better with the safety on." And he hits her and knocks her out, basically. And Sydney and Stu and Billy have this little fight, and she hides in the closet, she dresses up like the killer, and she stabs Billy with the umbrella, and they basically have a little fight, and and Sydney drops the television on Stu after he said that he always had a thing for her, and she says, "In your dreams." And this television drops on him, and he screams out and dies. And Billy and Gail, have this little discussion, and Sydney, and like I said, and Stu, actually, turns out that Randy is alive after all, barely survives, and Billy gets shot in the head by Sydney after she says, not in my movie, because Randy says that this is the part where the supposed dead killer comes to for one last scare, and then Billy dies, and that's it. And turns out that with good luck, there's this music that comes up, and freaking Dewey lives, and they pull him out on a stretcher, and Sydney and them come out of the house, and they basically have a little talk, and the music comes up, and Gail decides to go inside of the ambulance. Well, actually, she doesn't. She does her little final story about this whole thing, and screen fades to black and roll credits. Well, actually, this is before the screaming goes on, and we see basically some music and a reel of all the main characters and their names, and then finally the credits come to black. So basically, Scream is an okay movie. You should like it.
Scream is a good movie, and it is given the rating of chocolate peanut butter cups and a chocolate bar.
Scream is a good movie for Halloween. You should really like it. It has its moments. It's it has a few moments in it, like I said before, that were too much for a rated R movie. That it could have been NC-17, but they had to recut it. So basically, there's one thing I wanted to add is that Kenny, the cameraman, gets slashed, and the Randy is surprised is inside the house, and he has no idea what's going on, and the killer sneaks up on him, and Randy goes, don't do it, Jamie. You know, he's talking to Jamie Lee Curtis inside of the movie, and the killer goes away. This is after. This is much later. Gail Weathers discovers Kenny on top of the windshield, and she goes, "I'm sorry about this, Kenny, but get off my freaking windshield!" And she has this freaking blood on the windshield, and she has to use the windshield wipers to wipe away the blood, which is really cool, by the way. So, anyway, just go ahead and hit subscribe. Watch some more videos. Share and like, of course. Hit thumbs up to support the channel. Leave a comment below, and I'll see you next time. Bye.